like Featherstone Homes. Have you seen them?
I've seen them. I couldn't really say where, but you know when a name is familiar.
So he said he goes gym with you. I said you guys need to connect in that, because
he goes gym with me.
He goes to your gym.
I'm so bad with people, you know. Like I'll be chatting to people. I might have known them my whole life, and when somebody says their name, I'm like, I don't know them. Then I see them, I'm like, my brother, that's my family.
No, he said you may want to get him on there, but he does his own developments in Dulwich. He's got like ground up developments. But I had spoken to him about you, and he said and he knows you go gym, try and connect. So shout out to Featherstone Homes.
Okay, big them up, big them up, and big up you. So we are back for another episode of the Property by Kazy podcast. Today I'm joined with Adewole. We're going to be talking all things property. He's funny enough this is the first time we've met in real life.
Yeah.
But I've been phoning him when I need help, need certain advice, because there's some people that you just have to give your props to, and he's one of them that he's always come through when I've wanted to ask a question, when there's been something that I don't know. And so you're about to get some crazy knowledge, some crazy gems, but if you want them, you know what you've got to do. You know you've got to hit that subscribe button. You know you've got to like that video. Something short, sweet. Done it? Right? Let's get into it, brother. Tell them about yourself.
Yeah, what's happening? Kaz, thanks for getting me on here. So everyone, my name is Adewole Ademolake. I'm a chartered surveyor, senior development manager, and I manage large-scale regeneration projects in London, namely East London. So at the moment, I manage a portfolio of projects that total around 600 to 700 million, and these are delivering thousands of homes in London. And I've worked in the public sector, where I currently work at the moment, where I work for a wholly owned company by a council. I've worked in a housing association, and I've also worked in a private developer. So in terms of the spectrum of knowledge, expertise, outlook, I've seen it all in property development from all the different angles I've worked in.
That's what it is. And I think sometimes, I feel like now when we have conversations, you're able to comfortably say, look, this is what I know.
Yeah.
But I do feel like when we first started speaking and I was asking you questions, you'd be like, oh, I've not done my development yet, or I've not done X, Y, Z yet. And I was like, but bro, you're so hard. Like, you know so much stuff you've done. Because like, what would you say is like the total value of the projects like you've worked on?
I've touched 100%. I would have touched at least, from a cost point of view, I would have touched at least maybe 1.5 billion.
And just like those numbers are astronomical. When we look at, residential commercial property, they're ridiculous numbers in what that means in terms of deliverables. So what you would have dealt with across like your work experience is gonna have been crazy. And I don't think there would have been something that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, no, exactly. And as they say, you're learning on someone else's time. Like becoming a chartered surveyor on someone else's time. You're seeing things go wrong on projects in someone else's time. If I was to make some of those mistakes on my own time, that could have wiped me out completely. But it's not like I do make mistakes, but you might be in a company setting where you have colleagues that you've heard have made some mistakes on projects, because things do happen in development and construction, as you know. But when you're just learning how people are to overcome them and how they resolve them and how people learn best practice moving forward,
that's it, because it's and I think we highlight that it's not just somebody else's time. Yeah, it's on somebody else's dime. Yeah, like, so it's somebody else's money, and also, they are paying you to do that at the same time. Yes, and I think the current go-to way that people see things is there's a lot of the 9 to 5 is very downtrodden on social media. It's spoken down upon as if we see silly things that I think a lot of the time, to be fair, tend to be migrating from America. Yeah. But my man has to have this, or my woman has to do this, X, Y, or Z. And a lot of the time, a 9 to 5 can't fit into that. But, you're testament to what a 9 to 5 can do for you in terms of what you can learn from it and what you can earn from it. So I think, potentially, I always get asked from a lot of people, how can I get into property? And your answer might be different in terms of how, but I just like to understand, for your qualifications, what steps did you have to take to get to where you are now? Yeah, so just in response to that, I think I'll start off by answering that question, and I'll tell you why 9 to 5 is not, no one should write off a 9 to 5. So firstly, I started off studying a BTEC in construction.
Yeah, so you can generally know that I've been in this thing for the past 15 years.
Yeah, because just for those that are not familiar maybe with what that means, BTEC is at what age?
BTEC is at the age from college. So instead of doing A levels, I did a BTEC from the age of 16 to 18. It's a 2-year course, courseworks only, and it covers everything in construction, from design, structure, to development appraisals, economics, all of that stuff. Anything to do with construction and property, within reason, I learnt that in that course. And then I went to do a building surveying degree, went to do a master's in real estate. I worked in real estate for maybe like just under 9 to 10 years, 11 years now. And then I'm a chartered surveyor as well. So the reason I wanted to paint that picture is to say there's 2 types of people. You've got the entrepreneur that experience through pain, yeah, and you get a professional that experiences through others and through best practice. And that is where I feel that 9 to 5, you experience not through pain, because it's not materially killing you, but you're experiencing through best practice and your entity's ability to change and to obviously make things different. So I would put it out there to say, if there is anyone out there that wants to talk down in 9 to 5s, what I do for a living, you will have to pay someone a ridiculous amount of money to be able to de-risk and consider things the way I will. So why would you pay someone when you might be able to sacrifice maybe 5, 6, 7 years of your life to develop yourself in a professional capacity and then go out to start doing your own stuff? So this coming year, maybe in a year or 2, that is the plan, to go off and start doing
where you can decide. And in the meantime, you build up everything that you need alongside the knowledge, which is the money, which is the credit, which is the contacts to be able to
and
do
to
that.
buy houses as well, because a lot of people tend to and Kaz, you can probably throw yourself out there as an entrepreneur. You know, it's harder for you to get a mortgage, a personal mortgage.
Listen, if you go, like, we had Sam Norris on like a couple of episodes back, and we're speaking to him about like what's the most like concerning things you hear, or what worries you. He's like, what worries me is when someone says, right, I've decided I want to be a property investor, I've just quit my job. Yeah. Because instantly they're like, hang on, that's a red flag for the lender now. Now you've got no income.
Exactly.
So, and I think the other side of it is when people ask me questions, and I'm sure you probably get asked this question, like, how do I get into like property? That question alone is almost an indicator, because the fact that you're not saying, how do I get into this specific area of property? Sort of the notes that maybe you don't know what it is you want to do yet. So where you don't know, maybe it's a good idea sometimes, not for everybody, everybody's different and everybody learns and experiences different, but it might be for a percentage of people a good idea to go and work in other vocations and train in other vocations to work out what it is that you like, what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Because like what you just said there is like around what form of property. I always knew I was going to do property from when I was 16. I'm 33 now. But one of the things that kind of...
Someone that's older than me.
Yeah, there's what, 1 year?
Older, I could be 23.
Yeah, but I've always known I wanted to do it. But one thing I did always know is I wanted to do something that I can scale upwards and downwards. So in property development, as you know, the difference between managing a £600 million project and managing a 500,000 project.
That sounds so mad, by the way. You see, like, some things that just scare you. Like the idea of when you say £600 million, I'm like, I just think to myself, and like you said, because I'm used to the issues, like any problems falling at my doorstep, then that's 600 million pounds worth of problems that could come to me.
But it won't, and I'll explain why. The way that you
You're
mitigate...
going to help me.
No. I'll tell you what, because you'll be surprised. I'll give you an example. You got 500,000 on, let's say this project, it cost you bought it for X amount of money and it's going to cost you X amount. Let's say that the GDV is $1 million, you bought it for 400,000 and you probably spent 300-400 grand doing it up, yeah? In reality, you are going to have a bill cost, you're going to have a contingency, and you're going to have a building contract with whoever your contractor is to deliver it, and you're going to keep a careful focus on the values. So when you do the valuations at the end, that's how you're able to get your money back. And,
the schedule of payments and when and deliverables.
And when, exactly. So that same process that you go through, on whether it's even on a smaller scale, it's the exact same process. Your checks and balances are likely to be very similar to the checks and balances we do. So I would say that it is more trickier, in my opinion, to manage a smaller development than there is a bigger one. Because the bigger one, if I've got a development and I've got a 5% contingency, and the 5% is, guess how much? It's a 3, 4, 5, maybe £10 million contingency. There's no problem that we can't resolve with £5 to £10 million. Whereas that same £400,000 that you're going to spend to refurbish this project, a 5% contingency is £20,000.
Yeah.
One little thing can wipe out your whole profit. So this is where I say that a smaller developer and their sensitivities, I think that it is, if you can manage a small development, you can manage a big one.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? And it's just sometimes, it's just like the idea of driving a small car versus driving a big car.
It's the same car.
It's the same thing. And you know, you manage it, but it's just mentally looking at it. Sometimes you got that mental block. But I completely agree, because like from doing some ground up stuff, and I thought, you know, in your head, before you do it, you're thinking, this is going to be crazy. It's going to be the hardest thing I've done. And in actual fact, you're like, this is like Lego. It just sort of just goes up and it steps. Conversions, when you're dealing with Victorian buildings,
asbestos, the building might cave in,
and then you're also dealing with all sorts of stuff. So you don't budget to change every joist.
Yeah,
you take the floors up and they're all rotten, and then now that's something that doesn't make sense to have in your budget because it's not assumed. Yeah, but you have to work with way higher tolerances when you're doing conversions.
Exactly, and this is it. A lot of people think that like a person that can get their head around refurbishment, deal with it, and have a track record of doing it, you will be comfortable in the new build world, because you know what your materials are. You know, as you said, you're not having to worry about the unknown. The only unknown we do know is two things: whatever's in the ground, the materials inflation, and the values at the end. Those are your three key variables. If you can mitigate the value, what happens in the ground, so if there are any services there, ground investigations, you're fine. So you can at least build up to that stage. When it got to build, as long as you've got a good reputable builder, and they can finish the job and they have the resources and they're not going to swindle your money, and you've got a building contract and an employer's agent to manage that for you, you've covered that element. And then the material inflation, if you get a building contract, you can ask them to say you're going to sign a fixed contract, meaning that you're going to, this is the max we're paying and that is it. Yeah. And then the values at the end, you know this about exits. It's either you're going to change it to a buy-to-let if it doesn't sell, or you're going to sell it, or you're going to sell it at a discount, at bulk, to someone that has the money to buy it. So when you look at all of that, as long as you can cover those three areas, you're in a good position.
Do you know what's so crazy? It's like you hear the conviction and the confidence that you talk with, but it comes from time. But there's like, for me, you know, that you're always speaking and you're always learning. But that idea of when people speak about, they use these buzzwords like dream team and stuff like that, and I hate a buzzword, but like that's in a lot of instances there's a reason why we say them, because the fact that like I through Instagram could pick up the phone on, I think it definitely wasn't in office hours. And I picked up the phone maybe like 8, 9 at night. And this is after speaking a few times, and I could phone you and be like, look, do you know what? I want to do this new deal, but they've come back and like my Section 106 agreement has said X. And do you think I can challenge it? And you straight away have given me, right, do this, do that, do whatever. I think that's one of the importance and one of the great things. I know we talk about a lot of the downside of social media. That's one of the real pluses, that we can have conversations like this, that people are now introduced to you that wouldn't have access or wouldn't be able to speak to you before. And vice versa with what you're talking about wanting to do in going into, you know, doing some of your own stuff. You can contact and build those connections, and I think that's great. And
it's important, Kazy, because a lot of people think that it's all about what can I do for you and what you can do for me. A lot of people overlook the power of friendship. So, you know, for instance, for you to call me and say, Adewole, boom, if I said, Kaz, tell me about this development finance broker that you know and how they do whatever they're doing and what their terms are, you're not going to withhold it because you see us as friends. So a lot of people need to establish that it's not always about money, and people need to stop being transactional. They need to be relational. So for instance, I always say to people, a transactional person, there's a limit to how much I can help a transactional person, but there's no limit as to what I'm willing to do for someone I consider to be a friend. And in property, that is very important, because if you look at a lot of people...
It's just business as a whole. Because although this is a property podcast, I always go back to, this podcast doesn't have the limit of it's just for property people, because business is business. Like whether you're selling apples and oranges, whether you're doing property, whether you're an artist, business is business, and it's relationship based.
No, definitely. And you hit it. I think that like a lot of people that know me, some of my people around me, I know people for a very long time. So I've still got friends from primary, from when I was born. Still got friends from college, secondary school, university. Every single stage, I still got the same group of people. Professionally, same thing. So you can imagine, I'm gonna know these same people up until I'm by God willing 80, 90, because it's all about relationship.
Yeah, and also the difference between, you know, people that are your actual friend, and I think, I don't know what episode we spoke about this, but you have a vested interest in wanting them to do well, and you grow together, and you take, you know, risks on each other. Like, there's a great story. Like, I feel like my architect, who I've known from growing up, I don't even, you know, where you don't even know where you know someone from, like that. We didn't go to school together, and it's just, we didn't really like roll in the same, but it's just, I just found him. I picked him up somewhere. He picked me up somewhere, or vice versa. But it was like, my first conversion was also his first conversion. But I had seen the work before, and he was like, I'm like, look, I want you to do this. And so he's like, well, I want to make sure I get this from you. Now, like, well, not now, but for years now, that was ages ago, that's like maybe 8 years ago, but now I told you, he's the go-to architect in Croydon for property conversions, like, shout out AA Drafting, like,
AA Drafting, what's up?
Yeah, like, they're smashing it, but that was because of relationships that I believed in him and he believed in me, and that's the same reason I've known my architect, like I said, 15 plus years, my solicitor, 10 plus years, my accountant, 20 plus years, like, and we're growing and building together.
And you know that thing you mentioned, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people tend to forget that. You know, now if you've got a deal, you don't have money in your pocket, but you need someone to look at it properly, and to give you designs for free and say, I'll give you back the money when I get it. Just for the simple fact of you having a very strong relationship, knowing that you're good for it when it does happen, they will do a lot of things for you without asking for money up front.
Because you've got a credit history with that individual.
Exactly, and it's important.
Yeah, and that's it. Credit history of individuals with the banks, it's all the same.
It's all the same.
Once you break that, once you get your CCJ with somebody, they're not coming back to you for 5 years worth of good performance. Yeah. And they just see how the banks treat you, it's how other people will treat you. So
no, definitely.
You have to maintain.
Because I'll give you an example. Like there was like a couple of people. One guy was meant to do some work for someone, and things went wrong. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that is he's destroyed his credit with everyone that is aware of his incident of what happened with that transaction. He's destroyed. So my thing is this: like, when people think that you could do a fast one, or you can treat people wrong, or you can chip £1 away from someone when it's due to them, and you decide to do that. That in itself, you don't know the irreparable damage it's doing when you're sleeping, when you wake up, when you're going out with your missus. It's damage.
I'll tell you, I remember being like 16, 17, something like that. I think I was staying by myself for a period, and I'd gone away and I'd left like a couple of like my friends had like access while I was on holiday, and I had £500 in my house, and the £500 went missing. But like, rather than go on a warpath or whatever, like I knew my cousin. I'm saying, like, I know, like, that's,
you know,
that's
your
my
cousin, that's your blood.
That's my like, that's my cousin, but over my cousin, that's my brother over my brother. That's my friend. Like, it's not. And then my other friend, I just know them. But then there was 2 other people that potentially had access. I said, look, I don't know who, and I'm not like, it's just that's, for me, that's it. We just cut ties.
The bridge is burnt.
And I've learned that lesson over £500 from somebody. And I saw it run into them, like, you know, even like a year later. Like, bro, I said, look, bro, you know what I mean? It's just not that. See them 10 years later when it's like, brother, like, you know what I mean? Like, I said, bro, it's still no hard feelings, but it's still just not that. And then sometimes I think that idea of, you know, integrity or the quick buck or also learning a cheap lesson. Yeah. Because if somebody burned you, I can't remember, it's awful, if someone burned you over like £10, £20, £100, whatever it is, sometimes that is the cheapest lesson that you can get.
You know what, and you know, like, I know, like, I'm a Christian and that, but I'll just give it to you like this. You know, Judas, he burnt Jesus over a bag of gold, yeah? But what did he do with that gold in the end? I swear he committed suicide, didn't he?
I don't know.
Do you got what I'm saying? So my view is this, like, yeah, like, when people wrong me, like, if someone wrong me over one bag, like I had friends that have rugged me off like 3 bills, 5 bills, a bag, 2, whatever it may be, and I said, oh, that's great, because I would have given them an M if I had it. Yeah. And if they'd wrong me over that would have broken my differently. So my thing is like, I'm
sometimes
glad
you have cheap lessons.
It's good.
And I say that not to sway too far away from the property side of things, but it's like when we're conducting these investments, or you're dealing with a broker or an estate agent, or anybody, like integrity is so key.
It's key.
Because it's that, idea of it's easy to break a glass, but you know how hard it is to put it back together and not still see the cracks.
Exactly that. And you will learn, I think most people will learn that they will either try something and they will never be able to recover from it. But in the flip side, people should just bear in mind to maintain it. And very good points.
And what's so funny is I tell people, when people come on this podcast, and they're like, not you, but I'm like, what are we going to talk about? Like, can you send me a list of the questions? And I'm like, do you know what? It's like, we just talk, and it might be property centralized. It might be life skills advice. It might be business advice. It could end up being relationship advice. But the idea is that a lot of what we speak about could be taken improper. If you're just fully property focused, that advice will help you there. But if you're business focused or anything focused, it's just general advice or general conversations that I find interesting, that have helped me. Like your brother that came and spoke to us earlier and was asking, why do you do these podcasts? Like, how much do they make? I know he didn't ask me why I did the podcast. He asked me how much do I make out of them? What's my return? What's my return on the podcast? And my return isn't monetary, because if I was to give you a monetary return, I'd be in the red. Like it's a loss leader. But like, I do these podcasts because there's an opportunity for me personally, from a selfish angle, to learn. Like, because I have these conversations, and when I'm speaking to people, like some people that have been in the game longer, some people have been in the game shorter, but I'm learning all the time, and I'm learning from them, so I'm enhancing my own skill set.
You're gonna laugh at this example, Do you used to watch Dragon Ball Z,
Oh, of course. Come on. Listen, if you didn't watch Dragon Ball Z, don't smudge yourself. But watch it. That's a legendary show.
Anyone from the 90s onwards. But the reason I wanted to mention that is, you remember like Piccolo, and Boo, how did they get stronger?
How did they get stronger?
By taking someone else's power in it, And I know that it's not taken, but that you're only as good as either the people that you're around or the conversations that you're having. So I am a result of all of the professionals, good and personal people, uncles, aunties, my mum, my wife, my kids and all of that. I am a result that you're speaking to today.
You're the sum of those.
Because I take a bit of everyone's. So that, as they say, that wisdom is that a wise person learns through others. If you speak to a lot of people, which you do in your podcast, you are learning a point of view that you would never have ever attained if you hadn't spoken to that person. Yeah. So I use that Dragon Ball Z example is because you get stronger through relationships. So if you speak to people and you learn a point of view, I like listening to people and I like speaking to people. I don't care if it's a drug dependent person or a drunk person, because you find that they have the most wisdom.
Yeah, because sometimes somebody will say something to you and it's not necessarily that it's smarter or better, but it's different. You didn't think like that before. And that's one of the reasons why I did. The other reason is that, like, I'm fortunate that we're building a platform. And we're building like a tribe of advice. And it's like, whenever I speak to somebody, I'm like, they told me something great, or I learned something great from them. I'm like, this should be out there more. And if I've got the fortune to be able to put you in a position where more people are gonna see you, then for me it's just an opportunity. Yeah,
and you'll be surprised that like thought leadership, as in its very nature, is about being a leader of thought. Yeah, so like we talk about property education, is very polarized towards people trying to like deal with people's motivation. So like, for instance, if I want to gas you, I can say, you could become £1 billion developer, right? You'd be like, yeah, this is what you need to do. Yeah, but sign up to this course. Yeah. All of that stuff, fine. But when you are a thought leader, you're getting the professionals like myself, you're getting other people that are doing it properly and etc., and they're giving you the reality. What that does is that it gives everyone an equal playing field to know that this is not going to be a get rich quick type scheme. It's effectively going to be something that you're going to have to work at, So it's just important to just note that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Speaking of property education, what's your thoughts? Because obviously you have a property education, and you spent significant amount of money on your property education, but you've gone down, a different route to what is potentially more common when people think property education. Obviously you've actualized the value of what you've learned, but what's your thought of the education scene as a whole?
So the education scene, I would say, I think it's good in some instances. I think the information that's provided, I think that people need to like separate between motivation and fundamental education. There's two different things. So if I'm going to educate you, I'm not going to gas you up. I'm going to say 1 + 1 is what, bro? you're going to say 2. Cool. How do you do a residual land value? Just tell me. I'm not going to tell you you're going to be a millionaire. I want you to tell me how to do a calculation to get to a land value. So my point is that there is a lot of motivation, and there's, you know, like the motivational side and education intertwined. And I'm not sure that cocktail, it doesn't rest well.
I think that the cocktail is important, but I think the balance hasn't been found between the two. And I definitely think you've put that probably better than I have or anybody else has, that the actual raw academic education is what's missing in a lot of the property education courses or mentorship sometimes, and the reality is that not everybody is a good teacher. And if you've come from an education, like in terms of like books, learning, etc., then potentially as a backbone, you're in a better position to like sort of regurgitate that information to the point where do you have the basics? The flip side of that, on the other hand, is not everybody learns the same.
That's true.
And some people maybe can educate themselves but can't get motivated, and they need the go out there and get it, Wolf of Wall Street style, beating on your chest, you can be a champion, and that is what's gonna make them great.
Both of them are important.
But you need a balance, and you need to know what you need to know and when you need to know it. So I always say that personal self-analysis is the most important part of getting educated, because if you don't know what you need, how do you know what to go out there and get or sign up for?
So, you know, like, I'll give you an example. I went on a personal self-help thing when I was younger, when I was 22 years old.
Why are you smiling, bro? That's healthy, bro. Don't smile for it.
Yeah.
Clap the man for going on it, bro.
The reason why I said 22 is because our good friend over there is 22, so he can hopefully get something from this. But in short, 22 years old, and I remember I went to that conference with a guy that was sitting next to me. I will never sign up. But I kept on going in and out because I had work and stuff. The long story short, by the time I came back the next day, guess what he was doing? Signed up. Like, he goes, I'm going to be a millionaire tomorrow, bro. Like, I'll be like, yeah. But in short, I went home the next day, and God is my witness, like, I had a mental breakdown. You know why? Because if you repeat gas to someone so much so that they believe that gas, that you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow, bro, and it doesn't happen, what happens after that? Disappointment, guilt, disgust, and that. And this is what I always say about the education side, the motivational side. People have to be very careful as to how you're gassing people up and whatnot. Because if you were to look at the God forbid, like the suicide rates and that, people that are getting alcohol dependent because they've been gassed up so much and they believe what they're being gassed up on.
Because you believe that you failed when you haven't failed.
When you haven't even achieved it, when you even don't have the tools to. So, you know, like in university, as an example, you're taught, you're not motivated at university. You go to university, you go to your classes, and you learn how to calculate, and you gas yourself up through information. So when I did my masters, I went in working. I had worked for a developer briefly, and I knew why I was going to do my masters at the time. But in short, I was going and speaking to my lecturer, say, that developer I'm working with is doing X, Y, and Z, so is this why I'm doing this course? And he goes, they'll feed off your energy. But generally speaking, uni's not there to gas you up and whatnot.
At all. That's why nobody can come out of uni and come and, insult the course, because they didn't tell you were going to get a job afterwards.
They didn't
guarantee you a salary.
They didn't guarantee you anything.
You don't even see average, even in the prospectus, you never see average salaries. That's only when you talk about a specific course that you want, like a job that you want to go for afterwards. They're just saying, look, we're a good university. What happens afterwards is completely on you. And I think that's where it's the bit that becomes a bit murky with the over-promising and under-delivering of how stuff is sold. And I think it's not always the course itself that's the problem.
It's the individual.
It's how the course is sold. Because if I don't sell a course and you sign up for it, like it's just online, this is what you learn in the course. You can't begrudge anybody for doing that course because it wasn't sold in a certain way. But
I will go out there to say I'm not naming. There's no one that I've seen, because I don't sign up to course and I don't even follow them. But there are a few that I'm quite aware of. So you know the guy, the property planning game chap that you had on. I think I've looked at his information and it is very consistent with the training that
That he
someone
delivers it. Oh, sorry.
this type
From
of
what
stuff
you've
I would
done and
do.
the type of stuff.
And the type of thought
because
process is is it Milbank by I can't remember his name.
I'll grab his details now.
Yeah, there's two main people that I've seen.
Hey, see what you're doing. See you watching and you're not subscribing. So before you do anything, right now, go and hit that subscribe button. Done it? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, so you know what I was saying about when you're looking at contractors, you need to make sure that their turnover, your contract, you times it by 3, and their turnover needs to be that.
Okay.
And then that's when that gives you some comfort that they have the resources to be able to like fund your project, not fund your project, but carry out it.
Manage your project without getting into cash flow problems.
Yeah, like we used to go on Experian and we look at the industry standards of a particular contractor. So you know, like there's multiples, credit scores, etc., and it will tell you what the industry norm is for that contract for that industry, and you will look at that against your contractor. And if they're not meeting most of it, then you are taking the risk going with that contractor.
And that's the thing. And it's funny that, like, you know, from when you look at education versus experience, because when we had James on, like, and he was talking about how to find a contractor, a lot of his stuff was down to personal recommendations, in terms of just going down, meeting their previous clients. But then when you go big business, you're talking going on Experian, checking industry standards, and I think both of them can actually be used from a residential perspective, even from doing your own home. Some of them can be more apt for different circumstances, but I think it's good advice, you know, overall, when you're trying to find contractors, regardless of the scale of your job.
You can do both. So I wouldn't, if I was going for a contractor through my own enterprise or my own business, I would definitely go and want to see their costs, speak to their clients objectively without the contractor being there. And then, but I'll also do all of my due diligence. In some of the companies I worked for, that due diligence is generally done by a finance professional, like an accountant or something. So they will objectively tell you whether you are entering into a contract that is at risk.
Okay.
So you can get your accountant to say, can you just check that person's accounts, please, to make sure that they can afford to sustain this contract. And if it's found that they can't, at least you're going in knowing the risks. So what you then do is say, okay, I want parent company guarantees, I need your insurances, I need this, that.
You see, when you talk sometimes, I think to myself, I can't wait for you to get into developments, because you're going to scare off every contractor that you come to work with. Listen, because we were saying, like, look, when you even, because you know, when you put like tender a job, and we're talking like most basic tender on like a My Builder or a, do you know what I mean, like Trusted Tradesman. Even sometimes when you put a detailed scheduler working, you scare off half of the potentials. When you come back in and say, can we get a parent company guarantee, you're going to find that you've got one builder to choose from. But at the end of the day, it's down to what you want. And you might see that, and like, as an individual, and the great thing about being an individual or being your own business is you can decide where to take risk as opposed to industry standard.
Because you know, you talk about like me working with people, I take chances on people. That's number one. Obviously, I know I've got my professional background and the way that I think as a chart surveyor and senior development manager. But on the flip side, I am willing to take a chance on someone. So if one part is not as good and they can do various other parts, as long as the checks and balances are sensible, I will take a chance on it. And put it like this, you know, when it comes to like relationships, if you're going to pick your missus, or let's say you were single maybe many moons ago, you were going to pick someone, it is a mutually beneficial relationship, isn't it? When you're getting with someone. Same with a builder. I'm saying, Mr. Builder, I want to develop into a developer that's going to deliver 50 homes a year. You're delivering 10 homes a year. I'm going to make sure you achieve that, but I need you to help me get to a 50 unit per year. So it's a mutual relationship. And as long as people are willing to grow within relationships together, you will find that, and people are not gonna, try and shaft people and do what people over, as it normally happens in business. If we can get that a relationship with a builder, I think that is probably one of the criteria that I'll be looking for, to make sure I can work with someone that wants to grow as well as I want to.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So talking of where you're going to be growing into and what you want to do, obviously when you start doing your own stuff, where do you see as like, what projects would you like to take on personally?
So in terms of projects, I'm going to be starting A Lake Limited in maybe this year, maybe next year. And the type of projects I'm looking for, I don't think there's a limit to projects, because one thing we all learn is that there is enough money out there, as long as you have the knowledge and you have an understanding of exits, you know how to manage money and all of that stuff, you will always find money to do deals. So in my mind, I can go from anywhere from 1 unit all the way up to 100.
Okay.
But
So
I know that realistically speaking, I would like to start 10, 15 maybe, and then work my way up from there. But I'm not going to limit myself. It's based on the opportunity and whether I feel I have the right resources, investors, and the professional team, architects and all that. I've got all of that in abundance.
You've got all of that in house. It's just a case of you working out going forward what deal is going to tick the right boxes for the right level of risk, the right level of team and people that you have any given time to deliver that, to make sure that the returns match your relative risk.
Exactly. And then it gives a return back to the investor, gives a return back to the team, and it gives a return to allow me to grow my business. That's the plan.
That's good, and that's a good plan. We're going to see that in fruition over the next couple of years. So make sure you follow the man himself. So before we let you go, there's one question that we ask all of our guests on the podcast, and that is because it's the most common question that I get asked, and I think one of the questions that could potentially offer the most value to the most amount of people. And it's, I'm 17, I'm 18, I'm 19, I'm early 20s, and I want to get into property development or property as a whole. What advice would you have for somebody?
So the first thing I'll say is get a job. But in all seriousness, obviously I'm going to think about my 2 daughters when I'm answering this. The first thing I would say is that they say that the best thing in life are free. So when you look at property information, we're talking planning, development, and all the other things that form property development and the property market. A lot of that information is free information. So understanding how planning decisions are made, permitted development orders, all of that, you Google it and you can find all the information. The difficult part is finding people that can explain to you what it is in practice. So that's why coming onto podcasts like this, if I was 17 and I had access to this podcast that we're speaking about now, it would make all the difference, because I wouldn't have to spend my time racking my head trying to figure out things. So I think in today's age, you've got free information that you can try and establish through online means, like just Googling stuff and not speaking to Adewole, the guru. No, go and find the reference document that Adewole is referring to. So as an example, we're going to talk about community infrastructure levy. There's the SIL regulations 2010/15 that you can read as a document, and it will explain to you how SIL was calculated.
Because that's the thing. I think when we talk about that question, the value of an answer is only as good as the question.
Yes.
So if somebody's coming to you and saying, right, not how do I become a property investor or a developer, but right, I've read this, this and this, and I've got these questions. It's way easier for you to take the time out of your day to answer and explain those specific questions.
Exactly, and to pinpoint it. So I feel that that is one part. The second part is listening to podcasts. And I think that...
and you know the best podcast to listen to is right here.
And it's
the
called...
Property by Kazy podcast.
Let's go. No, it's the best. Yeah, exactly. And I think that you have to find people that are competent, knowledgeable. And obviously Kazy's got me here as a competent and professional person. So
let's see. You pitch, I pitch. It's just unilateral, universal, self-serving plug-in at the moment. Yeah. However, it genuinely was because, and I've realized that a lot of this, I get asked the question, and I'm saying, look, like, where do I start? And just start with filling in like that knowledge. And like you touched on, some of the best things to read are not the funnest things to read.
Yeah, they're not fun.
But sit down, read them, learn, work out what you don't know.
And find the people to answer
then come back, exactly, that can answer what you don't know.
Yeah, and I think the final thing I would say is you have to remember that in like what I know in development would have either cost someone their house or it would have cost someone their life. So in short, I'm not saying that development is dangerous, but I'm saying that I've done all of my learning on someone else's time and clock. So the knowledge I know, as I mentioned, I'm doing big developments, but I can scale it down to one house, and I can even scale it down as small as a refurb. But I can also scale it back up to £1 billion if I need to. So all that type of sensitivity, that type of knowledge, I think you can get that through work. So my thing is this: if you're 17 and you wanted to get into it, you might want to go and study a property development degree, civil engineering, even architecture. That means that you can effectively do a lot of the work yourself, unless you just need to find equity and then you go and find money. But the first thing I would say is find a vocation in this industry. You work in it, and you might do 5-6 years. You learn to ask as many questions as possible, and then maybe in your 30s or even earlier, you crack on and do stuff.
No, I think that's really good advice. We appreciate you coming on. Adewole, where can they find you for the people? Make sure you get in the spellings as well, because not everybody's on the YouTube seeing our glowing faces.
Yeah.
Some of them are on the Spotify, some
Yeah.
of them are on the Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast. So where can people find you if they want to reach out and network with you?
Yeah, so if you want to reach out to me, you can follow me on alakedreaming, which is ALAKE dreaming, DREAMING. So you can find me on Instagram. Use that same alakedreaming.com to get onto my blog where I talk about property development. And I would say watch out for me because I am looking to start my own developments, and I'll be doing development management services for property developers as well. So one way or another, I am going to be out here doing business. And the second thing I'll mention is if anyone's interested in property development, get in touch with me or get in touch with Kazy to put you in touch with me, whichever way round. I'm around to make sure that the next generation of property developers and property professionals have the right ideas and they know what they need to be working on for the next few years.
That's it. That's amazing. We appreciate you having you on. Just so you guys remember, this is somebody who's talking about coming from doing, a BTEC at the age of 16, 17 to talking about delivering over 1.5 billion pounds worth of property. So when we talk about how do you get somewhere, it sounds crazy. It doesn't sound achievable, but there's examples in place in our community that are showing that it is possible. This is the Property by Kazy podcast. If you haven't already subscribed after another amazing episode, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button right now. Like it. If you've got any comments from myself or Adewole, use the comment section. Ask either of us and we'll try and get back to you. And thank you for tuning in.